Well, it's great to be back here with so many friends and fellow fighters for equality and justice. Now, you know, I have a tradition now at this dinner. My purple socks. They're back. And I want to start by thanking your new great president, Kelly Robinson. Kelly joined HRC just a few months ago, but I can tell you from my perspective in Washington, she's made a huge impact and made it clear that equality and liberation will be the core of her vision. So she's the greatest. I want to thank our co-chairs, Danielle, Vikram, and Michael. I want to recognize our honorees, Ariana DuBose, Gahinda Wiley, and Coleman Domingo. And I want to give you a little thanks. Now, I was on the ballot in November. You may not have remembered that. I didn't have that much of a race. But I want to thank HRC. Someone thought I did, I guess. I don't know. But I want to thank HRC for everything you did to get out the vote on my behalf and on behalf of the Democratic slate. You are, those of you who knocked on doors and made phone calls and raised money, you are democracy in action. And thanks to your hard work, I am both humbled and honored to be the first ever New York senator to be elected to 5 terms. And I'm proud in this 5th term as my majority leader that the Senate actually, they all said, oh, they're going to lose the Senate. Because of your work and your help and the support of this community throughout America, we actually gained a vote. And as you know, we just finished the most productive legislative session in decades, probably since the Great Society or maybe even since the New Deal. It benefited all Americans. It benefited the great people in New York. In fact, you know, remember Senator Moynihan used to decry the fact that New York was a donor state, that we sent much more money back to Washington than we got. Well, these 2 years is the first 2 years that New York got more money back than we sent to Washington. It's good to have the majority leader from New York. We did a lot. We passed the American Rescue Plan. You remember those horrible days. The streets were deserted. Our sleep was often punctuated by the ambulance sirens going by our windows. We said, I wonder if this would be someone we knew, a friend of ours. It was awful. Our hospitals were calling me saying they were overrun with patients. They were going bankrupt. Our healthcare workers couldn't get the PPE they needed. Well, in the American Rescue Plan, we delivered the dollars, we kept the subways going, we kept our small businesses going, and we wouldn't let these right-wing Republicans stand in our way of helping New York and America under the desperate needs of COVID. We did the infrastructure bill, the largest infrastructure bill in decades. The CHIPS and Science bill, the largest investment in manufacturing. We're bringing the jobs back to America. And I'm so proud that the largest investment so far is in Syracuse by Micron. We passed the Climate Inflation Reduction Act, the biggest climate change bill in U.S. history, biggest ever. And we put a cap on Medicare. No one's going to pay more, no senior will pay more than $2,000 out of their pockets for prescription drugs. And maybe best of all, we confirmed more judges, these powerful federal positions, lifetime appointments, than has been confirmed in any 2 years in decades. They are the most historically diverse bunch of judges ever. 2/3 are people of color. 3/4 are women. And they have great, not just demography, but they also have great professional diversity. Not just corporate lawyers, no offense, corporate lawyers. I'm glad you're here and paying for this dinner. But legal aid attorneys, immigration attorneys, consumer advocates, so many people who've walked this, who know the other side of life. They're now on the bench. And at the top of the list, Ketanji Brown Jackson, the first black woman and the first public defender to ever sit on the Supreme Court of the United States. And I don't know if she's here tonight, but one of the smartest, best judges in all of America. We confirmed Allie Nathan to be the United States Circuit Judge for the Second Circuit, the second open lesbian woman to serve on the federal appellate bench. She's got a great future. And this has been a passion of mine to put diversity on the bench, including LGBTQ folks. You may remember I was proud that I recommended the first out openly gay man to become a federal judge, Paul Etkin, who's doing a great job. And we did a lot of other stuff. The first gun safety bill in 30 years, boosting health care benefits for veterans. Pell Grants increased by 50%. Child care increased by 30%. And you know, one of the great shames of America is the great division by race in terms of maternal mortality. A black woman has more of a chance of dying at birth than a white woman, and it's regardless is how we say it in Brooklyn, sorry. It's regardless of income. A well-to-do black woman has more chance of dying in birth than a poor white woman. We've got to change that, and we began to do it. We got 1 year of postpartum care for moms on Medicaid and CHIP for the first time in history. But that's all great. But there was one accomplishment last year that hit home in such a special way, one that was personal to me, personal to my family, personal to every one of us in this room, and for tens of millions of people across America. You know what I'm talking about? We passed the Respect for Marriage Act into law, finally. And let me share with you, my friends, yeah, I wish I had a napkin to wave, that was good. And let me tell you, it wasn't easy. Very few bills hit home for legislators quite like this one. Passing this wasn't just the right thing to do for America, but it was personal for so many of us, to our staffs and my families. As most of you know, my daughter Allison is gay. Her wedding day was one of the happiest moments of my life. But we were sitting at dinner in September in 2020, our whole family, and someone just brought us the news from their iPhone that Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg had passed away. I remember the awful feeling around the dinner table. I distinctly remember the question my daughter and her wife asked all of us: could our right to marry be undone? It was a question, sadly, that was asked around millions of dinner tables that evening. And so we had to work hard to make sure that that didn't happen. When the Respect for Marriage Act passed the House in September with 47 votes, it was a wonderful surprise. We knew the bill was popular. We knew it was essential. We knew it was the right thing to do. But at that point, it wasn't clear whether we had every Democratic vote, there were 50, but you needed 60, 10 Republican votes. And it was unclear whether we would have the votes. I asked our two LGBTQ senators, Tammy Baldwin and Kirsten Sinema, to go out into the Republican side of the aisle and find out where the votes were. And they came back, and they said, I'm not sure we have the votes. And a number of the Republicans were saying, if you do it after the election, we might vote for it. We can't now. I called some of them into the room. That was true. Now, I was getting tremendous pressure from some of the real political folks in my party saying, put it on the floor now, even if it loses, we'll show the division, and we want to show who's on whose side. But guess what? Getting it done was more important than any political gain. I took a lot of crap. I got beaten up a little bit, but I stood firm. So did my caucus. We waited. And guess what? Guess what? Respect for Marriage Act passed with 62 votes, and it is now the law. It's about making a better life for millions of LGBTQ Americans across the country. But it's also about children and families who will be protected by this bill for generations to come. Like for me, God willing, my soon-to-be-born third grandchild, my daughter Allison and her wife are expecting a child, their first, in 3 weeks. I am so excited. And that child will not have to be born with this specter of repeal over her. I can say it, his head. It's going to be a boy. I hope my daughter and her wife won't be mad at me for letting that out. Let me say this. My grandchild's going to live in a world that respects and honors his mother's marriage. And I am so proud of that, so proud of that. Now, you all made this bill happen. You made change possible. And because of you, we're taking one step closer to fulfilling our work of making a more perfect union. Now, as Morgan mentioned before I came out, we have a lot more to do to protect LGBTQ rights, for sure, like passing the Equality Act. In 2021, the House Democratic majority passed it. You know how many Republicans supported in the Senate? 0, nada. You know how many Republicans were even open to a discussion? We just do a motion to proceed, to put it on the floor and at least debate it? Nada. This is more closed-mindedness. I have to call it like it is, by Senate Republicans. It's cruelty to millions of Americans of all political stripes who deserve to live in dignity like everyone else. It is unbelievable that in this 21st century that discrimination against LGBTQ people in so many aspects of life is still allowed. Can you believe it? So that's why this election mattered so much. With an expanded majority of Democrats, we now need only 10 instead of 11 to move the bill forward, but they're seeing the handwriting on the wall. They're seeing where America is. And so we are going to work together this year to put the Equality Act on the floor so that LGBTQ plus and queer Americans will no longer have to face discrimination in the most basic areas of rights. And we will get there. We will get there. You know, I was the first senator to march in New York's Gay Pride Parade. I've been doing it for 25 years. And for those of you who see me, I have my little megaphone. And I always say the arc of history is long, but it bends in the direction of justice. And we all believe that, or you wouldn't be here tonight. We will bend it in the direction of justice, but only if we fight for it. The fight's not yet over, but we are going to work to pass this necessary, historic, and right legislation, and American legislation. Together, we are going to continue to protect this community and advance this country to become a more equal and more perfect union. I promise you this, with every bone in my body, with every atom that I breathe in, I am going to be spending my time fighting to bring full equality to the LGBTQ community, and together we won't rest until we win. We will win this fight, everybody. Keep fighting. We will win.